Thief Rogue Explained. I'm Uncorrupt, and this is my gameplay guide for how to play Thief Rogue. Just one quick note here, this gameplay is pre-recorded, and I'm going to be speaking on top of it to explain the plays and maybe explain some situations that aren't seen in these particular games. So if you see the game pause and not move, that's going to be exactly why. Basic mulligan for this deck is going to be, we would want to keep the Blackwater Cutlass, we would keep Jackpot, we would keep Reconnaissance, we would keep Knoll, and then we would also, believe it or not, keep Queen Ashara. It's actually the highest mulligan win rate card in the deck. And as you can see here, Reconnaissance is the only one of these cards that we want, so that's going to be the only card that I keep. And it's actually perfectly acceptable to be able to play Reconnaissance on turn 2 with this deck. We're still going to be able to get our Knolls to be free, simply because Jackpots are going to be adding cards into our hand. And we can see here right off the bat that this is actually against a real Demon Hunter. So as soon as the class has been revealed, I'm already thinking about how does the class I'm against win, and in what way am I going to be able to defeat that class. So sometimes you don't really find out until maybe turn 2 or turn 3 when you're playing against a rogue until they reveal themselves as far as what they're going to be doing for this game. So here we're up against a Demon Hunter. And so I'm already thinking to myself, this Demon Hunter is going to be drawing a lot of cards, it's going to be punching me in the face, and it's going to be looking to kill me probably around turn 6, turn 7. So you can see with the Reconnaissance here, we get some pretty decent options, and Reconnaissance is really the first time in the game that you're going to be making a meaningful decision. So of course, if you don't have a Reconnaissance early in the game, maybe that doesn't necessarily mean it's the first decision. But Reconnaissance is a very, very important decision because the card that we pick is going to go into our Contraband stash as well as our Test Greymane. So we want cards that are going to be strong in the matchup that we're playing, and that's going to vary depending on what we're against. So in this particular matchup, I know that the Demon Hunter is going to have my life total under threat, and so pretty obvious with this particular Discover that I'm going to want the Underking here. Battle Cry and Death Rattle gain 6 armor. Potentially this card is just going to heal me for 12, and because of the discount, it's going to be playable on turn 5. So that's going to be the take here. Against another class, for example, if you were playing against Aggro Druid, potentially you might want to take something cheap just so you can put it on the board. Having a cheap, even just a 3/2 minion that you're able to Reconnaissance and then just throw it on the board immediately because it costs 0 is going to be really good in certain matchups where our opponent is building a board presence early. Second Reconnaissance here on turn 3, didn't really have anything else to do, so I'm going to Discover again. And again, keeping in mind that we are playing against a Demon Hunter, they're wanting to attack my life total very aggressively. And then you see here, we're offered Kresh, Lord of Turtling, Frenzy, gain 8 armor. Again, this is just going to be healing, and it's something that I feel like is going to be strong in this matchup. We're going to be able to play that on turn 4. So by selecting the Kresh here, we're going to have a turn 4 Kresh into a turn 5 Underking. Again, this is just going to be generating armor, which is basically effective life, and we're going to be trying to prevent our opponent from being able to kill us. You can see the Demon Hunter here, not able to draw cards. They just throw out the Fel Barrage and doing damage. We're already down to 21. But we're just going to play the Kresh out on the board, and then we're expecting at some point that this Kresh is going to take damage and heal us for 8. So by picking this card and playing it out onto the board, we've been able to basically punish our opponent. If they ever play Unleash Fel, it's going to activate the Kresh, which is going to heal us for 8. And if they ever play Lady Setheno, at some point Lady Setheno is going to bump into that Kresh, and again, it's just going to heal us for 8. If it dies, it gives us the 2/5 dagger, so really strong. Again, we see our opponent here just punching us in the face, as we would expect from the Demon Hunter. And we're just going to continue with our plan. We're going to get down the Underking for some nice big healing. And then we can see here, the Demon Hunter actually punishes us for putting minions on the board. We're going to take 12 damage because of this, which is actually quite a bit. And they're not actually killing the Underking, so we don't get the 6 healing. So you can see here, turn 5, we're already down to 12 health, and we've actually healed for 6 already in this game. So unfortunately, health total is already getting low. You can see here we hit the top deck of a Shadow Step. So immediately I'm thinking to myself, how can I get more health within this game? Shadow Stepping the Underking and replaying it. Again, it's going to be 5 mana because it's going to be discounted from the Shadow Step. That's going to heal me for an additional 6. It's still going to maintain a 6 attack body on the board. And again, if it dies, it's going to heal for an additional 6. So Shadow Step makes this just a really automatic turn. We don't really have anything else that we want to be doing. I think I do trade the Blackwater Cutlass here. It's going to discount a spell in hand, and it's going to draw a card. Typically, whenever you draw a card, you want to draw a card first to see if it changes your play this turn, but there's nothing in our deck that's going to allow us to really be able to heal any more than the 6 that we're going to get by replaying the Under King. So, you know, we're going to do it just for having the proper order here, but really nothing that we can draw here that's going to change our play. It's just a good habit to get into. If you're going to draw first before you make the rest of your play. You may find something in some matchup, some game somewhere that would change your play. And then you can see here, we Shadow Step, we're going to heal for 6 and push face. And I just kind of taking a look at our hand here. Likely, we're just going to play the Test Greymane next turn. It's going to allow our board to go really wide. It's going to give us another Crush, and I believe 2 more Underkings are also going to be played. So it's going to create a very, very threatening board. And we can see here, our opponent actually completing the first part of the quest on turn 6. That is very, very slow for a Demon Hunter. Lots of games, they're going to be completing that step of the quest as early as, you know, turn 3, maybe turn 4, something in that range. And we see here they equip a little bit of healing with the weapons, and they hit us for an additional 5. So now we are down to 13. Crab, pretty useless in this matchup, just because we know that our opponent's not going to be playing minions, and, you know, the 4/1s are going to die really easily to an Unleash Fel, plus their extra bodies for healing. So the play here, again, is going to be to get down the Test Greymane, and it's going to give us a really nice, wide, threatening board. We're going to push all the damage face here, so you can see our board is really wide. We have lots of damage on the board, and we've put our opponent in the situation where they have to kill us this turn, or we win next turn. So we've been able to set up lethal, and when you think about it, the way that we've played this game, we've been able to remove Lady Sethino from the equation. If they ever play it and it hits one of our crushes, it's going to heal us. We actually have 2 of those out now. If it ever kills the Underkings, again, that's going to heal us. So Lady Sethino is worthless. It means that the Abusive Sergeant is worthless because Sethino is never being played. And even the Silvermoon Arcanist also worthless because our opponent can't afford to play Unleash Fel. If they do, it's going to heal us for 16 because of the 2 crushes. So we've made all 3 Bound Souls in our opponent's deck this game absolutely worthless, and we've also made the 2 Unleash Fels absolutely worthless. So that's 5 cards that our opponent could have in their hand that are useless and cannot be played in this particular game. So feeling pretty good about the situation that we're in here. Our opponent now has to deal 13 damage. They started the turn with only 2 from the weapon, and a hero power would be 3. Unfortunately, what we're going to see here is I believe our opponent has lethal. I think it may even be exact lethal, and unfortunately, we just lose, so I feel like we played this game as well as we could. We took the correct discovers and, you know, played exactly as well as we could. Unfortunately here, our opponent actually has 2 extra damage to be able to kill us. A little bit of overkill there, so we actually lose here, but we played well, so I was happy with how this game played out. And, you know, if you hear about how people are asking for nerfs to Demon Hunter, this game is a good example why. They didn't have to meaningfully interact with the board that I presented. They were actually able to use the minions on my side of the board against me so that I took additional damage. But they never really had to kill those minions. And, you know, even though I had good minions that if they attacked them, they were going to heal me, they just never had to interact with them. Everything went face, and they were actually able to kill me before I was able to kill them, even with such a big and threatening board. So a little bit unfortunate there, but that's the way it goes in Hearthstone. Moving on to another game, you're going to see here, we don't have any of the cards that we would want. Again, the mulligan is going to be Blackwater Cutlass, Reconnaissance, Jackpot, Knoll, as well as Queen Ashara. And you can see we actually come out pretty well from the mulligan here. We threw everything back. We got a Cutlass as well as a Reconnaissance. So best turn 1 that you can play with this deck is always going to be Cutlass in every single matchup. The only time that might not be the case would be if you were playing against a very aggressive deck, again, like Aggro Druid, if you were maybe facing like Face Hunter. If they play a Knoll on turn 1, you might want to equip that Cutlass just to be able to remove the Knoll, just because we don't want to spawn extra Knolls while we're playing our spells here. On turn 2, you're going to see I'm actually going to play the Sketchy Stranger here. This is kind of part of a larger plan that's specific to this game. So first of all, Sketchy Stranger is a neutral card. We can play Sketchy Stranger. It's not going to remove our Maester Disguise. That means we're still going to be able to discount Knolls from the cards we're drawing off the top. And also, the secret that we're adding to our hand from another class is going to discount Knolls. So you can play Sketchy Stranger on turn 2. Gives you a board presence, but we're still able to discount Knolls. Also of note here, you can also play Astalor. That's also a neutral minion. Sometimes, again, against aggressive decks, you just want to throw down that 2/2 on turn 2, even though we don't get the Mana Thirst. You can play that, and you'll still be able to discount Knolls from additional draws later on in the game. For this particular game, seeing the Queen Ashara in hand, I'm already thinking before I drop this on the board about what kind of secret I want to take. And what I've decided here is pretty much I want to take the Hunter's Secret. And the reason why is because on turn 3, I'll be able to play a Hunter's Secret as well as this 1-mana Reconnaissance that I have in my hand. And then on turn 4, I'm going to be able to coin Queen Ashara. I'll be able to pick the Horn. And that's going to allow me to be able to play a Colossal on turn 5. It's insanely strong. It's one of the best plays that this deck can make, and it's why Queen Ashara is so good in the mulligan. We have lots of spells, so it's easy to activate the Queen Ashara, especially when we're going second and have the coin in hand here. We have 2 options in this particular game for 2 mana secrets, because we were also offered a rogue secret. I end up taking the Freezing Trap simply because I know my opponent is a rogue. They're going to be able to win with pushing damage into our face from the board, and the Freezing Trap is just going to keep us a little bit safe. And then you're going to see here that I'm going to go exactly as I planned. I'm going to go Reconnaissance first here into the Freezing Trap. And I think there's a possibility that I may have actually mispicked this. So I'm going to pick the Thessarian here. Thessarian is just a really, really strong card. It's only going to cost 2 mana, and it's good in the Contraband stash to be able to get that back over and over. I do think I misplayed, though. I think Ashara and Defector is actually the better card here. Again, we know that our opponent's going to be putting lots of minions on the board. We want to make sure that we don't die to the board pressure. The Ashara and Defector here would give us the opportunity to really be able to remove minions from our opponent's side of the board. It has Rush where the Thessarian doesn't, even though the Thessarian does get 2 damage as a battle cry. So, possibly a mispick here. Not totally sure if that's a misplay or not, but it's definitely something that could be debated and something that I would want to go back and look at the replay after the game to see how it came out. Ultimately, just keeping to the game plan here, I get my secret down as well. I'm going to coin Ashara next turn. Again, it's just really strong. And we see our opponent is going to be hitting the board here. And the good news for us is they're not actually going in with the graveyard on this turn, but we know that they're going to be going in on the next turn. That's just how the rogue class is going to be played. And we know that our opponent is skilled. But it's nothing that's happened that's going to change our play here. I am going to Serrated Bone Spike, and you can see that I thought about removing the Ghoul, but ultimately I want to remove the Astalor. If this game goes long, I don't want my opponent to be able to get extra Astalors in hand. Again, I have the Freezing Trap up if they were to attack, and get the Astalor back in hand. Even though it's a little bit more expensive, they could play it, Shadow Step it, they could just Shadow Step it this turn. Don't really want my opponent to be able to create extra Astalors because it's really a lot of value in games that tend to go long. And I don't mind if they get the Ghoul back at 4 mana. It's just so expensive now. That's just not really a concern with where I'm at. And we're going to see our opponent is going to be going in here. We're expecting the Queen Ashara to be removed. It's not going to stick. We're expecting a pretty wide board. Could be Knolls, could be Stenographers. And then, of course, we're going to have the big Stealth minion. And we're likely going to be left with nothing on our side. So, fortunately, we've been able to get the Horn of Ancients in hand. We're going to be able to play a Colossal next turn. Hoping for a good Colossal to be able to fight for the board here. There's not going to be a whole lot of bad options. Even the lesser desired Colossals can be pretty good. Even Ozamat in this matchup can be good. It's the 6/5 that's potentially going to remove a lot of minions on the board when it dies with all the tentacles. There's a lot of matchups where that's just not desirable. It's kind of weak, it's neutral, it's not going to get replayed from the stash. In this particular case, it wouldn't be that bad just because of the amount of removal that it represents on the board. So I'm going to play the Horn here, and we actually hit Gigafin. Gigafin really strong. It's going to remove the board. And so we're going to be able to remove everything that our opponent has in play here. That's going to be the first rogue board is going to be removed. So we're feeling pretty good about that. That's a nice Colossal for us to pick up. And I'm actually going to Shadow Step the 7/4. It gives us another Gigafin. It means that those minions are now gone forever. When we replay the Gigafin, if it dies, they're not going to be able to draw. And you can see that our opponent here actually just concedes. They feel like they're not going to be able to overcome the Gigafin. So a little bit of a high roll there on our part, but keeping in mind, we made conscious decisions to be able to play those spells. And to, we took the Hunter Secret, which maybe was not the best option. Objection, certainly very, very strong. Usually the Mage Secrets are going to kind of be the default pick for the Sketchy Stranger, but we had a plan. We wanted Queen Ashara on 4 so that we'd be able to play the Colossal on turn 5. And you can see it was actually the winning line here. If it wasn't Gigafin, we certainly would have had some other Colossal that would have had a nice impact on the game as well. So definitely a high roll, but not necessarily an unexpected outcome because of the line of play that we took here. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Uncorrupt. Good luck out on the ladder.